There's a town located at the center of South Africa, a bit west from the Orania River, that has stirred up a lot of controversy since its inception. The town has existed for 32 years since the end of apartheid. People, both internationally and domestically, have called this town racist, bigoted, and exclusionary. It's a town made up of white people, specifically white Afrikaners. And in this video, I'm looking into the history of the town, its beliefs, progress, and people, and maybe answer the age-old question, is it racist though? Let's take a look at Orania. So, in 1963, the Department of Water Affairs wanted to provide the Northern Cape with water. They aimed at building a dam and a canal system nearby the Orania River and created the Orania River Scheme. The department wanted their workers closer to the site, however, there were no towns nearby, so they looked at a close-by farm, Flakieskraal. A large part of the farm was expropriated that same year by the government to construct homes for the construction workers. The farm then became a town and was named Orania. 65 families lived there during the construction period. These families were made up of colored, black, and white people. A church, a school, and other leisure facilities were constructed as time went on. However, when the construction of the dam and the canal reached completion, many people left the town. Only a few colored and black families stayed behind. The town was left in ruin throughout the years, where it got vandalized and most buildings and houses deteriorated. The Department of Water Affairs saw no need in keeping the town anymore, so they put it up for sale, where a farmer, Jacques Pretorius, bought it for 1 million rand in 1989.
Gebied is Zulu gebied. En die Oos-Kaap, die Transkei, die Ciskei, is die Xhosas, almal weet dit. En jy weet waar die Wendas woon. En jy weet waar die Tswanas woon. Ensovoorts. Maar jy weet nie waar woon die Afrikaners. Die Afrikaners is gestrooi oor die land. Toe sê ons moet begin werk aan die gedagte dat die Afrikaners ook ergens geïdentifiseer word en hulle kan konsentreer.
The South African Bureau of Racial Affairs was a group of white intellectuals from Stellenbosch and National Party ideologues. It was established in September of 1948 as an alternative to the more liberal South African Institute of Race Relations. The purpose for Sabra was to moralize the mission of the National Party, basically theorizing and affirming the need for apartheid. Sabra and its members wanted to create a system where every race and ethnic group in South Africa would have their own homeland, where everyone is left for themselves to grow and develop parallel to one another. This was basically a way of segregating the people of South Africa. One of the reasons came from W.E. Baker, and he stated the following: segregation is a policy of pushing the black man out of the way of the white man, in order that the European can preserve his own racial purity and keep it free from the so-called impure color of the native. But since the cheap labor of the native would be needed in the European industries, segregation would only ensure that this labor would always be available. But when the natives had served their purpose, they would be sent back to the locations and left to look after themselves. The reserve would only exist as a source of even more of this cheap labor and a dumping ground for the used-up labor from the cities.
One of the key to apartheid strategy is the Group Areas Act, which delineates in the country the places where white people, black people, coloured people, Asian people can live. And often we get people living in areas which, according to the Group Areas Act, they shouldn't be living. The regime tries to encourage people to voluntarily shift. If they don't want to shift, then often we see the bulldozers come in and people's houses are bulldozed and they're forced to shift away to the homeland areas where they can't find work, or simply to become squatters in places like Soweto.
Okay, so labor from black South Africans was needed for the progress of wealthy white people and their industries. Without that, they would suffer and be forced to do their own labor. Thus, the more liberal members of Sabra didn't see it fit to totally remove black South Africans from the industries and the economy. However, the Minister of Native Affairs, Hendrik Verwoerd, wanted the policy of total apartheid or pure apartheid to come to fruition. What he and his constituents wanted is for the total separation between races and ethnic groups. In May of 1954, Verwoerd said this: "We have set South Africa on a road to total separation, but it's not necessary for us to attempt to reach that goal in our lifetime." He believed that total apartheid would last for 100 years and that white Afrikaners would develop and grow the economy without the labor of the natives. However, political unrest and instability during apartheid showed that it would not last for long, prompting the leader of Sabra, Karl Boshoff, and the rest of the members to rethink their strategy. Karl Boshoff's son, Karl Boshoff IV, stated it as follows:
Redelik gou aan die einde van die 1960s is professor Gerrit Viljoen voorsitter van Sabra en is hy die eerste wat die uitspraak maak om te sê indien die ontwikkeling van swart tuislande nie voldoende slaag om vryheid vir elke volk in sy eie gebied tot stand te bring nie, gaan die wit bevolking, en ons het mettertyd baie uitdruklik nie meer van die wit bevolking nie, maar van die Afrikaners begin praat, nodig hê om na hulle eie heil om te sien in hulle eie gebied. Met ander woorde, as swart tuislande nie slaag nie, dan gaan ons na Afrikaner tuisland of Afrikaner heimat of 'n nasionale tuiste vir Afrikaners moet begin kyk.
Karl Boshoff and his followers' hopes were to build their nation in the Afrikaner historical region, the Transvaal. They would live out the ideals and values of the Afrikaners who came before them, to be self-reliant and fully independent. They wanted to build a Volksstad, a homeland for the Afrikaners. The Afrikaner people also saw the fall of apartheid as a sign of the loss of the Afrikaner culture. Therefore, the Volksstad would be a cultural homeland for the Afrikaner, where they can preserve their culture and people. Karl Boshoff established the Afrikaner Vryheidsstichting, or the Afrikaner Freedom Foundation, also known as AFSTIG, to distance the Afrikaners from the South African Bureau of Racial Affairs, where they can focus more on building their homeland. Seeing that the Transvaal was not a feasible location because the largest population of non-Afrikaners were in that region, AFSTIG saw the Northern Cape as the next best fit. The Northern Cape is the biggest province in South Africa. It's a semi-desert area where about 2% of South Africans live. A great place to establish the Afrikaner Volksstad.
Welcome to Orania, South Africa's only pure white town founded by Afrikaners for Afrikaners.
So, 1990 marked the end of apartheid, and in that same year a plot of land was advertised in Landbou Weekblad. Jacques Pretorius put Orania up for sale. And AFSTIG saw this as where their Volksstad would be. AFSTIG and its followers, however, didn't have the necessary funds to purchase this land. They hit a roadblock. But how did they buy it then? Well, they created a company called Orania Bestuursdienste, where they raised funds by getting private investors who believed in their cause. OBD raised about 1.5 million rand, which they used to buy Orania. During this time, the black and colored families who stayed behind after the construction of the Van der Kloof Dam were still living there. And since the ideology of AFSTIG was to separate white Afrikaners from everyone else, that meant that they had to leave the town after its purchase. The displacement of these people is recorded as one of the last big forceful removals of the apartheid regime. They moved out of the town in 1991, where they found new homes in the surrounding towns.
Middel van Suid-Afrika, 160 kilometer van Kimberley af en 240 kilometer van Bloemfontein af. Orania was 'n spookdorp toe professor Karl Boshoff en 'n paar ondersteuners dit in 1991 van die departement waterwese gekoop het. Die geboue was vervalle en tuine oorgroei. Van die dorp het vir 8 jaar leeg gestaan. Orania is 'n gemeenskap wat op sy eie bene staan. Die dorp is selfonderhoudend en die dorpsraad wat deur die inwoners verkies word, verskaf al die basiese dienste en onderhou die dorp se infrastruktuur.
On the 6th of April 1991, the town was officially opened and the supporters of AFSTIG moved in. This day also commemorates the first arrival of the first Dutch settlers who arrived in what's now Cape Town in 1652. The town was still in ruin, however, some houses were still intact. New homes were constructed throughout the years and others were renovated. About 40 families moved into Orania in 1991. For a short while, Orania was managed by the Orania Bestuursdienste, where they made all of the town's decisions and managed everything within its borders. Later on, the remaining part of Vletjieskraal, which wasn't expropriated by the apartheid government, was bought by OBD. They then created a company called Vletjieskraal Shares Block. A while later, the town council was established, which would run the town, replacing the Orania Bestuursdienste. However, the council was made up of elected board members of Vletjieskraal Shares Block and representatives of Orania Bestuursdienste. Around this time, Orania received a lot of backlash from majority of South Africa, even gaining the attention of then Prime Minister F.W. de Klerk. No action was taken to disband this town as he saw it as something that would die out over time. Members of the ANC and other political parties also saw Orania as a reactionary movement to the end of apartheid and a preservation of apartheid, which Orania denied.
Op Orania is ekonomiese aktiwiteite nie net op wins gerig nie, maar ook op gemeenskaps- en ekologiese verantwoordelikheid.
Orania's ekonomie word gebou op selfstandigheid en volhoubaarheid. Nou die eienskappe van selfstandigheid wat mens in Orania ook prakties kan sien, is 'n eie bank, 'n plaaslike geldstelsel. Die hoofdoel van 'n eie geldstelsel is om ekonomiese aktiwiteit binne 'n gemeenskap te bevorder. Om die geld binne die gemeenskap te hou en te verhoed dat dit uitvloei en so ontwikkeling binne 'n gemeenskap en kapitaal binne 'n gemeenskap beskikbaar te stel. Die plaaslike geld kan gekry word by ons plaaslike bank en uitgeruil word op 'n 1-tot-1 basis met die rand en so kan dit spandeer word binne die gemeenskap.
The town had a rocky start. Jobs were few and they had a very small population size. But with more people moving into the town and with the help of the Orania movement, more funds could be raised to build the town and its economy. Orania doesn't receive any state funding from the South African government, thus they rely on their own economy and funds from people who believe in their cause. 2 schools, a clinic, a town hall, a few sports fields, a swimming pool, supermarkets and other necessary facilities have been built throughout the years. The economy of Orania is made up of farming, hospitality, tourism, banking and finance, and the service industry. They use their own currency and banknotes called the Ora, which is tied 1-to-1 with the South African rand. Discount is also given to those who use the Ora at most Orania stores. The town has grown since 1991, where about 2,066 people live there as of 2021. More people supporting the idea of Orania have moved there, as well as young boys and men who struggle to find jobs in South Africa, and the number might still grow as time goes on. The idea of a Volksstad was built around racism, to separate white people from everyone else and separate those people from each other. Take a look at Bantustan and the Native Land Act, where white leaders wanted to segregate black South Africans into homelands while having majority of South Africa for themselves. As things changed and the ideology of segregation started showing signs of its inevitable demise, the idea of segregating white Afrikaners from the rest of South Africa became the new strategy, and they coined the preserving our culture narrative. Orania was born from the minds of racist white Afrikaners. It was built by their hands, and they idealized previous Afrikaner prime ministers who created the horrors that black South Africans had to live through. So to answer the question, it is racist. Thank you so much for watching this video. It took me quite a while to make it. However, I enjoyed the journey and learning more about this specific topic. If you want to see more videos on different topics, please leave a suggestion in the comments and like to boost my channel in the algorithm. Thank you again and stay curious.